Everyone is losing their minds over the new Michael Jackson biopic, but don't worry, I've watched the film, so here's my full spoiler-free thoughts on the best and worst parts of the movie, because my opinion is the only one that matters, obviously. You've probably seen that this movie has become the latest film to have a war breakout between the critics' reviews on Rotten Tomatoes and the audience score, because critics are absolutely panning this movie and saying it's terrible, and the general audience seems to absolutely love it, and I think the real answer is somewhere in between. First of all, Jafar Jackson is undeniably amazing as Michael Jackson in this movie. Now, even though he is related to him, apparently he had to go through like 2 years of training to practice the movements, the voice, and everything to even get an audition for this role. The director said, hey, if he wasn't good enough straight up, he was not going to be cast, but he definitely earned it. He is so perfect in this film. I do also really love a lot of the concert recreations you get to watch in this movie. All the concert sequences are great and getting to see them make certain music videos, but unfortunately, there are some pretty big negatives to this movie. Now, for some context, before I get to the negatives, I am not a huge Michael Jackson fan. I obviously know and like a lot of his songs, but I don't really know a whole lot about him and his life. So I was actually kind of excited to see his early career starting taking off and all this stuff. But sadly, I felt like I walked out of this movie not knowing a whole lot more about Michael Jackson than I already knew, which, as I just said, is not a whole lot. Like, a majority of the movie is pretty much focusing on the fact that his dad wants to control Michael and have him as a part of the Jackson 5 forever, pretty much. But Michael wants to break away and go solo. That's pretty much the only conflict of this entire film. Now, I'm not even talking about like the obvious allegation stuff that Michael Jackson faced later in his life, because this is not a spoiler to say, but the movie is a part one. They are hiding that in the marketing, but it is a part one, and they end it conveniently right before any of those allegations would start happening. I'm not saying like, oh, the movie's cowardice because it's avoiding that subject matter. I just think overall, this is still kind of a pretty safe and generic biopic. Like I said, it is elevated by an incredible performance and some really fun music sequences, which at the end of the day, I think is what most audience members are looking for, and that's why it has such a high audience score. And I'm sure this movie is going to make a ton of money because it is just a very pleasant crowd pleaser, but I just kept thinking to myself, there had to be more interesting stuff going on in Michael Jackson's life, or some more things we could dive deeper into here to make him more interesting. But I kind of feel like this didn't want to actually dive into who Michael was as a person. Instead, it was just like, hey, this is kind of a glorified music video that's an advertisement for his music and how incredible it was. And like I said, as that, it does work. Because like, yeah, I did want a lot more from this movie, but I can't lie, I was enjoying myself for pretty much the entire runtime. It's not like there's any individual scene that's bad or anything. There are actually some really sweet moments between Michael and him and his mom in particular. You get a Miles Teller jump scare. I had no idea this dude was in this movie. When he showed up, I was like, there's no way. All I can think of is the Fantastic Four meme every time I see this man's face. Coleman Domingo plays his dad, who, like I said, his entire thing is pretty much that he just wants to control Michael, keep him as a part of the Jackson 5, have ownership over him and where he goes on tour, what albums he makes and stuff. And I do think Coleman Domingo did do a good job of this, and I don't have a problem with this being the main storyline. Obviously, this did really happen to Michael. I just feel like we should have explored a little bit more. It's still a fun time at the movies. If you're a huge fan of Michael Jackson's music or just a casual fan, I do think you're going to enjoy this. I don't understand the super rotten score it's got on Rotten Tomatoes, but it's far from like a masterpiece or one of the best musical biopics ever created. I'm giving it a solid 7 out of 10, and that's kind of being generous just because the concert sequences were so amazing. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below, and if you want to see all my other movie reviews on the channel, click the playlist above my head right now, and thank you so much for watching.